It's Notre Dame week, and it's Golden Black Live, and you've got us on segment one. Welcome to the show. Purdue Notre Dame tomorrow. We'll be talking with Mike. We are talking with Mike Phipps, who knows Purdue Notre Dame better than just about anybody else, and we'll explain why for those of you that might not know. But we want to also thank our sponsors, Triple X on the Hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929, Hilton Garden Inn. When tomorrow's a big day, stay at HDI tonight. The State Farm agent, Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. And we are fortunate to have Mike Phipps on the line here from his home north of Fort Lauderdale, he said. And Mike needs no introduction, but if you've been living in a cave as a Purdue fan, Mike was a 1969 first team All-American, Heisman Trophy runner-up. Should have won the Heisman Trophy, but that's another issue. And obviously has had a very distinguished career at Purdue as one of the great Cradle of Quarterbacks members. And one of his claims to fame is he was the first quarterback to beat Notre Dame 3 straight years. And I guess, Mike, you're such a team guy that you played with great players, and you've always said that, and you did. But just what's that like, when you remember looking back even to September of 1967, your first year of eligibility, because freshmen weren't eligible, but going into Notre Dame week, what's that like? Just that excitement and playing a school that everybody has taught, that knows about, and it's always a big deal to play the Fighting Irish.
Well, my first game against them was in '67. I only had one game under my belt against Texas A&M, which turned out to be a good game for Purdue and myself. But a home opener against the national championship team,
and ranked number one at the time.
Yeah. And they had won, I think, 12 consecutive games, and so I knew we were going to have our hands full. But honestly, I don't think I ever went into a game, not only just against Notre Dame, but any team that we didn't really think we're going to win.
Yeah.
And you have to earn that. But, we just were that kind of team. We felt, it was our game to win, and we were just determined to get it done somehow. And so, that was an interesting start. It's probably one of the better Notre Dame teams we played, quite honestly. What was this final score?
28-21.
28-21. Okay. So, and I'll just say too, I played well. The big difference, and I think in all the games, and I had to go back and look at the recaps of the games, what really happened, because they were 50-some years ago. So, but it really, the key to our wins was defense. And even in the first game, Tim Foley had 2 interceptions. Webster had 1. There was another interception. The big thing for us was our third down conversions.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It didn't matter whether it was 3rd and 20 or 3rd and 2, wherever it was on the field, we converted. And that was the difference in the game. It was a high scoring game, for college back then. And I think, Alan, I looked at the total offense for that game. It was for both teams, it was over 850 yards. And I even think in a couple of other ones I think maybe in 1968 it was over 900 yards. Yeah. So they were high scoring games. And they were tough games, but we weren't going to lose. Basically.
Terry Hanratty, your counterpart at Notre Dame, set a record that stood for years.
Yeah.
In terms of pass attempts, I think it was 63 attempts in that game, which was unheard of at the time, and in the 1967 game. But then Mike Phipps ends up on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Can you imagine that? That was I don't know how you put that in today's term. That's like being on the top 10 of ESPN Sports Center. I'm not sure how you do it, but it was a big deal. And again, it was about Mike Phipps and Purdue beating Notre Dame in a great picture. One of my favorite, covering the first Purdue player to as a student athlete to be on the cover, and was a big deal, certainly at the time. You had team, as I recall too, you had weapons on offense. I mean, Perry Williams, a terrific fullback, Leroy Keys, who was just coming into his own as an offense, and pretty much, not totally, but pretty much exclusive offensive player. Let's talk about Leroy for a second. Not only we were all saddened by his passing this year, but just putting into context how good he was and what he meant, not only to the offense, but also checking Notre Dame's Jim Seymour when the Notre Dame's fine receiver that had a big day against Purdue the year before. He did it all, didn't he?
He did. Two-way players are extinct, Yeah. and he didn't play defense the whole game.
No,
He was kind of a situational player. When we needed to shut down Seymour, Leroy came in and did that. And so, obviously he was an integral part on that end of it on defense, but also the offense. I mean, we all know what he could do. I mean, there was anywhere on the field he could score, and both running and passing. So, I mean, he was a huge part of our team for 1967 and 68.
You talk about beating Notre Dame, and historically, and in some ways things haven't changed because the Fighting Irish have talent. They get top level talent. They almost always are good in the offensive and defensive lines. I know this year they've struggled a little bit in the offensive line, but talk about that need to be able to do that in this game. Not only Purdue in 2021, but look at your games in 67, 68, and 69. Line play and be able to go toe to toe with what is always a physical team seems to me to be a key ingredient to competing for 4 quarters with Notre Dame.
Well, it is. I mean, they always have one of the best teams in the nation. I mean, recruiting wise, they go anywhere to get athletes. And so, you're going to face talent, and it's just a matter of, them being coached up, and they were always coached up when our season was coached. I mean, it was, those games were tough games, believe me.
Yeah.
And this coming game, we haven't played them in 7 years or something.
9 years I haven't played them in 7 years, but 9 years at Notre Dame Stadium. 2012 was the last visit.
And I don't know what the stadium's like today. I do know back then it was a small crowd, but they were on top of you.
Oh,
I mean, there was no barrier really from the seats to a bench. I mean, it was probably within 3 or 4 yards so, and it was noisy. I mean, we knew that going in. So, I mean, there was some impediments and you had to overcome that. But the way we did that, we got on top of them and things got quiet. And so that's the best way to silence the crowd. And we were able to do that. So, and, we only played them 1 year, 1968. And as I recall, both of us were number one. And
right.
I don't know which poll it was. We were number one. And
you were number one in the coach. You were number one in the coaches poll, and they were number one, I believe, in the writers poll.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was a big matchup. It was nationally televised. I wasn't even certain I was going to play that game. And actually, I did. I was hurt.
Yeah, you had an ankle, right?
Got hurt. No, the game against Virginia, our home opener, I got a severely bruised thigh. And, I mean, it was bad. And it hurt. Even, it swelled up twice the size of my other one. So, and Dr. Combs did everything he could to get me ready, but it was still hurting me. And even I went in the first play, and it was I tossed to Leroy, and I blocked, and I hurt it. I came out, and I didn't even play in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Don Keeper came in
and did well.
Did great. Don did fantastic. He got us down. We got a field goal out of the first drive. And then I came back in the second quarter, and that's pretty much where we put it away. We scored like 20 points in the second quarter.
Right.
And there was a couple, again, it was opportunities the defense gave us. Yanaska recovered a fumble or interception. It was the defense that always, gave us opportunities to score. And of course, we took advantage of it. So, but, what I remember about that game, Alan, is that, we got a kind of I don't know what the score was, but we were leading close to 15 points, I think, at the end.
Right.
And Coach DeMoss said, well, you can take off your shoulder pads now. So, it's all done. So I did. And that was the worst thing I could have, because I had checked out of the game.
Yeah.
And it was well, we got it wrapped up. They started to come back. Yeah. And he said, put your pads back on. It was like, okay, it's like, all right, got to go back to work here. But, I didn't have to go back in a game. We closed it out, and, it was a big deal. That was,
it was a big deal.
Yeah. And we prevailed there in South Bend. So you can't.
In that game, final was 37-22. And you're right. And I have a memory for this stuff, but I like to tell you, I go back. It's on YouTube. It's hilarious. It's amazing. That game is no huddle. Chris Schenkel, Bud Wilkinson broadcast of that game is on YouTube, and you can watch it. And it's fun to watch. Yeah, it was 37-14. They scored, went for two, and cut it to 37-22. And there was still maybe 5 or 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
And I recall that being that way. It's still amazing. Purdue fans won't believe it, and yet it was a staple of who you were as a quarterback on that toss sweep. And Keys had 90 some yards rushing, but had a touchdown pass in that game. But you blocked beautifully, and I think a 25-yard run for a touchdown to kind of put the game out of reach, or at least gave Purdue a 23-7 lead. I think it was at the half.
Right.
How in the heck does a guy with your skill? I mean, I know you were a big guy and capable, but was blocking? Was that the norm at the time? Because you led the toss sweep. I mean, you were truly a pulling guard. And not to mention, I didn't know, but I thought it was an ankle, but your thigh, et cetera, that you had to be able to do that. What was that always in the plan for you? Or was that because of your body habitus that Bob DeMoss and Jack Molenkoff thought that was a good idea? How did that come about?
Well, they didn't think it was a good idea, but it kind of evolved by accident, quite honestly. I know in spring practice, we had the toss sweep, and Coach DeMoss said, well, just get out in front of somebody, you don't have to hit anybody. Well, anyway, I tossed and went down the line, and the defensive end just came up and just laid me out, basically, and really dazed me. And DeMoss jumps up, and he thought it was a great block, and yeah, so he's like, okay, we can do this, and I think I told this story. So I come back to the huddle, I'm about half dazed, and Keeper says, well, way to go, Flip. My nickname was Flip. And I said, thanks, Hawk. He said, no, you idiot, way to go. He said, now he's going to expect me to do this too, the blocking. But, I played defense in high school. So it was nothing for me to get, rough it up out there. And it was really kind of easy pickings for me. I mean, I didn't try to run up when I was blocking. I just got down low and I did more than get in the way. I actually took guys out, as best
you go back and watch it on tape. There's definitely the one, the Keys 25 or 20-ish yard run around the left end. You make a big block, as I recall, in that play, and the rest is history. So that part's good. And, you mentioned about playing in Notre Dame Stadium. Of course, it was 59,075 was the capacity at that time, and they are right on top of you. It's still the same. It's just the capacity. They just have another deck where it's 77,000 now. But you always heard about the noise at the student end. That was always, there's one end where all the students are at Notre Dame. I think it's still the case today. But what do you do? Did you do anything special to mitigate that, or did call much attention to that? I mean, it was a little different in the world of audibles and check downs and all that in 1968 versus 2021, but it's still going to be a factor I would expect for Purdue on Saturday afternoon in South Bend.
Well, like I said, the best way to deal
Get
with the
ahead.
noise issue is to get a lead. And I don't know what the fan base is like up there. I'm sure it's even worse than what it was back in the '60s. But and so that'll but Alan, all stadiums are like that anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got stadiums that go up, so the noise it just reverberates in these stadiums, and you got more people. So, but you deal with it. That's all you do. And the best way to do it, again, I'm just being redundant, take them out of the game early. And so I think if Purdue, can get on top, and I look forward to a really exciting game this Saturday. Things won't be easy, but it'll be easier if they, get out front early.
I don't know how much you've had a chance to watch games 1 and 2, but Jack Plummer is an athletic guy, can do some things where he's mobile enough and can throw it. And Aiden O'Connell actually came in against UConn and did well. But what do you see out of that Purdue quarterbacks? And you talk about that need in Jeff Brom's offense to be accurate, to be good, and they've been that so far.
Well, turnovers always are the difference in the game, and if you can keep yours to a minimum and then capitalize on getting your opponents to turn over, things always seem to work out. So, and that's a formula that's been in football forever, and it's just going to continue. I believe at any level, from the pros to college to high school, you win by having a great defense. You have to have a great running game. And of course, your passing game has to support, complete the offense. But, in today's passing game, it's really been dominant in college football. But if you go back to the teams that win, it's defense, it's running game, and it's passing. Those are the teams that win. So, nothing's really changed.
Yeah, you're going to have to be able to do all those things. Last comment, and we'll let you go. Leroy Keys obviously passing away this year. We had one of my, in a poignant way, but getting all the gang together, former players, friends, for a Zoomcast that we did in the spring with Leroy. Just talk about what he means to Purdue sports. We're all wanting, and they are wearing stuff on the back of the helmets, any recognition that Leroy can get and deserves for his legacy. But what kind of teammate was he, and what kind of friend was he to you for all those years after you played at Purdue?
Well, I don't have to say too much about him as a teammate, because he was the best Purdue's ever had. And so I played with him. So, but what I'll really miss, when I came back to Purdue, Leroy was always there. He was always someone I wanted to see first. Yeah. And the fact that he's not going to be around, it's going to take some adjustment.
Yeah.
And so, he physically is not there. Spiritually, I know where he's at. And I would think, though, it would be really nice for Purdue somehow to put up some type of a statue for him. If anyone's ever deserving of that, Leroy Keys is the person. And, in that way, when we go back, we could always see him again. So I'm just tossing that out there. That's how I feel. And we'll see what happens with that. But it would be great to for Purdue, for Purdue football, for the university as a whole. And I know certainly for his family, they would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, he is well worthy of that. He was the Pied Piper on the field. He was the Pied Piper off the field. Never met, he was as nice to the Alan Carpicks as he was to the Mike Phipps, and that's an impressive thing from that standpoint. That's just the kind of person he was. Mike, thanks so much for your time. You got great insight into to the experience. I know you're guaranteeing a Purdue 35-10 victory. No, you're not doing that. I know that, but it will be exciting to watch, and I'm sure brings back a flood of memories. Mike Phipps. We didn't even talk about the '69 game, which you beat Joe Thiesman turned Theismann in that one as well in West Lafayette. But we'll do that down the road. Have an enjoyable when you get a chance to watch the game tomorrow. Do that. We look forward to seeing you in West Lafayette sooner than later, and best to you and your family.
All right, thank you, Alan. Always enjoy visiting with you.